What do you expect from one movie poster featuring Melissa McCarthy in the middle and one movie trailer that expressively focuses on Melissa McCarthy throughout? You expect a Melissa McCarthy movie. Not what you get here. Is a film starring Melissa McCarthy and a number of other comedians in a plot that IMDb and other movie sites describe as amateur chefs from around the country compete for $1 million prize in the ultimate food fight. So you expect Melissa McCarthy for obvious reasons, and you also, for some reason, expect a food fight just because the word food fight is in the plot of the film. However, here's a couple things you need to know. This movie was made and finished in 2007, and it sat on the back burner for 10 years and was just now released. So you have to kind of ask yourself, what was the problem here? What took so long for the movie to be released ultimately? Well, there's a lot of problems here, and the main one is that there's a lot of false advertisement going on here. This is not a Melissa McCarthy movie. This is not a movie that features any kind of food fight. It's a competition movie. That is correct. But overall, it's not a movie you need to ever see, because it's a dumb, ridiculous humor. So if you like that kind of humor, some of the jokes in this movie will be funny for you. Otherwise, the rest of the movie just kind of feels like, why am I watching this? Let's get started here. First up, we're looking at the people category, which involves the acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry. First off, the acting. How was the acting? Well, in general, any kind of comedy, they never try to really have any kind of pronounced range with the acting. It's usually exactly how you would expect it. In this case, just kind of silly, kind of ridiculous. That's how it stays throughout. So as far as that goes, I have to give it 1 out of 2 possible stars. And on the top, you will see, yet again, a new formula. It's called star power. In the middle, you will see the total out of 100 possible stars, and on the very right hand side of the screen you will see the subtotal percentage. For instance, we just did the acting subcategory and it got only 1 out of 2 possible stars. That's why on the right you will see 50%, because that's where we're at right now. And you will see this kind of go up and down throughout the review. That's kind of where we're at right now, but it can always go up and it can always go down. Next up, we're looking at the characters. And this movie, I do believe, is more about characters than anything else. There's characters from all over the world, and yes, they're all ridiculous in their own special ways. Because of that, I kind of have to give this full points, because really, that's honestly what it's going on here. So 2 out of 2 possible stars for the characters. Next up, we're looking at the casting category. How well was everybody casted? Interestingly enough, there's quite a few members of the cast in this film that I did recognize, and I'm happy that they involved them. One of the reasons you'll watch this is because of Melissa McCarthy's role in it. She has a lot of comedies, and you kind of expect the same kind of film out of her. However, when I saw her in the trailer, something was very interesting about it. It didn't seem like her typical role in comedy films. It looked more like her role in Gilmore Girls, where she's the nice, sweet cook, both in Gilmore Girls and this, and she's kind of bumbling, kind of whatever. She's good at what she does, but she's kind of bumbling, and it seemed like the same type of role in this. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to see it. After seeing her in so many, vulgar roles in comedy, it would kind of be nice to see her back in that role. Unfortunately, that's not exactly what you get here. If you want to see that, go ahead and watch the Netflix Gilmore Girls A Year in the Life special that they had, but that's not what you get here. Otherwise, casting was okay, but any of these people could have been casted by anyone. The only reason anybody would watch this movie and not just skip over it is because of Melissa McCarthy, and I think that's more along the lines of false advertising. Sometimes you see these movies that are advertised for the actors, and you watch it and they're in there for like 2 seconds. Melissa McCarthy, for instance, is in there for like 10-12 minutes max. And she doesn't even really show up till 40 minutes in. This is a Melissa McCarthy movie. Like I said, it's really, really not. She's just kind of a special cameo, if you can call her that. So 1 out of 2 possible stars for casting. Importance, they all add to the plot, sort of, but sort of not. They all play the same exact part. They're all different, diverse characters, yes, but they're all kind of blending together because they all want to win the same competition. They're all silly. It doesn't really matter who they are. They play importance to themselves, and so I have to at least give it half points, but that's really it. So 1 out of 2 possible stars. How about the chemistry? Chemistry wasn't too bad because you have a ton of these strange characters, and they're all diverse and everything, and they're all working pretty well together. Melissa McCarthy, when she's in it, she has a good chemistry with her husband because that was actually her husband in it. Some of the other characters, like the host and the guy in the muffin costume, their chemistry with each other is pretty good, as well as a lot of the characters actually work really well together, I have to say, for the chemistry. 2 out of 2 possible stars. People category as a whole, 7 out of 10, which isn't too bad. It's average. Next up, you're looking at the writing category, and the writing category deals with the dialogue, how balanced the film is, how good the story was, if it was original, and if it was interesting. So let's get into that. How was the dialogue? Well, this was a very ridiculous humor film, and whenever you have that, you have a lot of weird lines that don't really make any sense, but they're in there for the humor. I do have to say, I laughed out loud in a few parts in this film, so I kind of have to say for dialogue, 2 out of 2 possible stars. Next up, we're looking at balance. How balanced was this film? I do think it's slightly balanced because they're all in this competition together and it's all about the competition. There is just way too many characters that the story is trying to focus on at the same time. It's all fine and dandy and sometimes humorous, but too much focus on that can make it feel a little convoluted, so 1 out of 2 possible stars for that. Next up, how was the story? What story? Other than people fighting for a competition and everything, there's no meaning to it, there's no depth, there's nothing like that. So as far as story goes, I'm not going to give any stars, so 0 out of 2 possible stars. Originality. Can I say I've really seen a movie like this before? Well, it is a mockumentary, and it's about a competition. Those two things in general feel familiar. It feels like you've seen this kind of movie before, although you haven't. Food competition thing feels kind of fresh. At the same time, it doesn't, so 1 out of 2 possible stars for originality. How about interesting? Was it interesting? Before I saw the movie, absolutely. They did a good job with the trailer and the poster, although it was false advertising. That got me interested, so they did their job at getting me interested. When I was actually watching the movie, though, that interest pretty much went and dropped off. So as far as interest goes, 1 out of 2 possible stars. That gives the writing category 5 out of 10 possible stars. Next up, we're looking at behind the scenes. Behind the scenes goes into the visuals, directing, editing, advertisement, and the music. As far as visuals go, it doesn't really feel the greatest because of the whole mockumentary style, but you kind of expect that with mockumentaries to feel more amateurish and unedited. So as far as that goes, that's fine, but it's pretty much typical, so 1 out of 2 possible stars for visuals. How about the directing? In my opinion, anybody could have directed this film. Nothing really felt particularly good or noticeable. Like, I can't look at this and be like, oh, this was directed by so-and-so. I think anybody could have gotten the script and directed it. Seeing how the movie took 10 years to actually come out, what else am I gonna say? The best I can really give this is 1 out of 2 possible stars. Editing, same type of thing. It's a mockumentary, so it doesn't really take much to edit it. All you have to do is string together some scenes, put up some titles that are pretty typical. I have done this myself in my own personal projects throughout the years. I know how to edit it. And if I know how to edit it, I can't really give Hollywood credit for editing it. So 1 out of 2 possible stars for that as well. How about the advertisement? As I've said a couple times before, this was horribly advertised. There's so much false advertisement going on here. You think this is a Melissa McCarthy movie all the way because the entire trailer focuses on her. The movie poster has her right smack dab in the middle. But the problem with that is she's in like 10-12 minutes in the actual film. A cameo. False advertisement. 0 out of 2 possible stars for that. How about music? With mockumentaries, you don't really expect much music. There's not much music in this. So it's pretty much exactly how you expect it. It is what it needs to be in order for the theme of the film to make sense. 1 out of 2 possible stars. That gives the behind the scenes category a whole total of 4 out of 10 possible stars. Next up, we're looking at the narrative arc category, which, as you should probably know, is introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action. So let's look at that. First up, we're looking at the introduction. There was a lot of introduction in this movie. Most of the beginning and throughout the middle of the movie was introduction because there's so many characters that it has to introduce you to. You can't deny the fact that there's an introduction because it's certainly there. So 2 out of 2 possible stars there. Inciting incident. While there's a way you can say that when the cook-off begins, that's the inciting incident, it never really feels like this is a moment you can't go back from. And for the most part with inciting incidents, it's a 2-part thing. Inciting incident and the crossing of the threshold. The crossing of the threshold means you feel it. You're past a certain point and you just can't go back. That never happens in the movie, so as far as that goes, 1 out of 2 possible stars. What about the obstacles? Ton of characters, and each of them have their own personal obstacles to get throughout the main plot of trying to win this competition, so 2 out of 2 possible stars there. Climax, what do you think? It's a competition. How do you think it's going to climax at the end? You can probably guess that that's fine. 2 out of 2 possible stars. Falling action. Does everybody kind of go back to a new norm after it calms down a little bit? Yeah, actually, there is a calming down of sorts. Every single character seems to have that, and I was impressed with that, so 2 out of 2 possible stars for falling action. That gives the narrative arc category of 9 out of 10 possible stars. Next up, we're looking at entertainment score. Was this an entertaining movie? For that, we're going to look at how rewatchable it was, how fun it was, any kind of impulse to buy it, any kind of impulse to talk about it, if it sucks the audience in while you're watching. Alright, so with this, I'm going to say, as far as rewatchability goes, it's hard to say. I don't think I would turn away from it because I hated it. I don't think I really hated it. It's definitely watchable because some parts of it are funny. So as far as rewatchable goes, I'd say 1 out of 2 because I don't think I'd be fighting to go see it again, but I wouldn't fight not to watch it too. So it's kind of on the iffy scale, so 1 out of 2 possible stars. Fun, like I said, there's definitely some moments I laughed out loud. 2 out of 2 stars for that. However, everything else here is not going to get any points. I have no impulse to buy it. Do I have an impulse to talk about or discuss it in any way? Not really. Does it suck the audience in? I can't say that it does. I think for the most part, you'll feel mostly distracted. That's 0 stars for that. That makes the entertainment score a grand total of 3 out of 10 possible stars. That brings us to the specialty category, and the specialty category has 5 subcategories of its own as well, and these ones are rated out of a possible 10 stars because they are specific and unique to the movie itself. So what do you expect out of Cook-Off, okay? You know that it's a comedy, so you want to know how funny it is. Actor specific, Melissa McCarthy. This was as a Melissa McCarthy film. The concept of food, cook-off. You also kind of expect some food fights going on. And finally, you have to ask if it's halfway decent. First of all, comedy. How was the comedy? Like I said before, I did laugh. So as far as this goes, I'm going to actually say 10 out of 10 possible stars. I don't think I had any problem with that. Actor specific. Melissa McCarthy is in it, but she's a cameo. I have to say 0 out of 10 possible stars there. Next up, the concept of cook-off. The concept of preparing food for a competition, I will say that that is 10 out of 10 possible stars because that does happen. Food fight, on the other hand, never does happen. 0 out of 10 possible star there. Halfway decent. You know, I could easily say 5 out of 10 possible stars for that because there's so many things where I think it did go wrong, but at the same time, I think the director wanted it to be exactly like this. He knew what he was doing, but as far as the movie itself, he did exactly what he wanted to do. For the most part, it is halfway decent. That brings our total up to 58 possible stars out of 100. Alright guys, I'll see you guys soon. Follow me on Tracked TV at username IAMDWG, and that's the same username for Twitter if you want to follow me on there. And as far as YouTube goes, hit the follow, subscribe, like, whatever you want to do, and click the little bell icon as well to get notifications when I come out with a new movie review. So I'll see you guys soon. Peace out!